Welcome to Triple Threat, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I know we keep switching the days on you, we keep switching the location on you, but I promise it is all for a very, very worth it reason. And I know a lot of people have been tweeting me and commenting on social media. Ashley, where are you? Where have you been? Game six, game seven. Look, I was on vacation. I was in Turks and Caicos, just got back, but you know I couldn't miss Triple Threat. And I was locked in the entirety of the playoffs. Don't worry, the NBA Finals, I was watching on an island with a nice drink in my hand. But I am back, I'm focused, I'm refreshed, I'm ready to go. And I'm actually a little frustrated. I'm a little upset because I absolutely love basketball, and I feel like, yes, there's always constructive criticism, and there are ways that we can constructively criticize the game, maybe the way that the things are done within the NBA in the hopes of bettering it, not just for the fans, but also for the players, for the longevity of the sport. But I feel like we have so passed the line of constructive criticism, and we are just being straight up haters. All right, recently Gilbert Arenas said that there was nothing, and I quote, nothing memorable about this year's NBA Finals. And well, you know, I'm never one to bite my tongue, and I had a response via Twitter, and I'm going to read that response for you right here on the show, just in case you didn't see it in real time. It says, I'm really just frustrated. I'm just gonna word it here in the way that, I said it out loud. Basically, I'm just saying that I don't appreciate how we are criticizing the game and the finals. It's been less than 24 hours since we have crowned an NBA champion, and people just want to bash it, and people want to say it wasn't good, and people want to say it wasn't memorable. And I just think we're doing a disservice to all of the greatness that has happened, not only in this NBA Finals, but in the postseason as a whole. And look, we have never seen more diversity. We have never seen more unpredictability in the NBA than we have seen, I feel like, in the past 7 seasons. And I say this all the time, and I'm going to continue to say it. There was a time that people were very frustrated with the product of the NBA. Yes, it was Steph Curry, it was LeBron, but there was no surprises. You knew who was going to be at the finish line at the end of every single season. This season is yet another different champion. 7 different seasons, 7 different champions. The league is more wide open than ever before. And yes, maybe you can say you miss diversity, or I'm sorry, you miss dynasties. But isn't the diversity what makes the league exciting? And to say that there was nothing memorable about this NBA Finals, I feel like is just wrong. You have the Pacers upsetting OKC game 1 in the most clutch way possible on their home court. You have the unfortunate Tyrese Haliburton injury. You have SGA having the most dominant NBA season as a whole, winning Finals MVP, League MVP, Conference Finals MVP, winning the entire thing. I mean, the list goes on the type of memories and just moments, not only in this NBA Finals, but in the postseason as a whole. And I just wish that the people in the position, like myself, to uplift the game, to celebrate the game, to constructively criticize the game, but to also appreciate where the game is at this moment in time, did a little bit more of that and less of the other stuff. Because we set the trend, we set the bar, and we're never going to experience the same moment twice. Maybe I'm just riding high on the waves and the sun of the Turks and Caicos. But I say this all the time. There's nothing wrong with criticizing something that you love, but we should also not be afraid to celebrate the thing that we love. And yeah, maybe it wasn't the biggest market, and maybe it isn't Boston versus the Lakers. Maybe there isn't a legacy or a history behind it. But the basketball that was played was good basketball. We had a 7 game series. And as a basketball fan, what more could you want than that? While you sit and simmer on that, we're going to take a quick break because when we come back, we have a jam-packed show. We got to talk some trades. Yes, Kevin Durant finally got what he wanted, but also it's draft week and we are less than 48 hours away from the NBA draft. And there's a lot of concern and questions and uncertainty about what the hell is actually going on. We'll discuss it all right after this. Welcome back to Triple Threat, everyone. If you missed it, the Boston Celtics traded Jrue Holiday to the Portland Trail Blazers for Anthony Simons and two second-round picks. That happened kind of late last night, depending on when you go to sleep. Here are the full trade details. The Portland Trail Blazers once again get their claws in Jrue Holiday. It's like the fish that they keep trying to catch. Well, they got him this time. And the Celtics, as we said, would receive Simons, a 2030 second round pick via New York, and a 2031 second round pick via Portland. A lot to dissect here before we get into Tyrese Haliburton, the injury, and how that's going to affect the Eastern Conference as a whole. Please welcome back to the show, everyone, Chris Walker. And Chris, this kind of came out of left field, right? I mean, we all knew that the Boston Celtics were going to make some moves, not only from a Jason Tatum standpoint because of his very unfortunate injury and how that's going to affect the team next season, with him expected to miss most, if not all, of next season. But this is an extremely high payroll. The Boston Celtics were recently acquired for around 9 billion. Their starting five lineup is worth around 900 million plus in salary. That's a lot of cash, especially when you talk about the fact that the Celtics might miss a championship window opportunity with Tatum being out of the mix. What did you think of this trade?
Listen, we all know what this trade was about. This trade was about money, right? The
Mm,
luxury tax, 500 million they will be paying with salaries next year. The team was sold, obviously, and you're looking at Tatum's injury, which happened before the team was sold. And you're right, Ashley. They may have missed an opportunity to possibly repeat as champions and get back to the championship standard that they have with the Boston Celtics. I'll say this, and Jrue Holiday was hampered this year in the postseason, so that hurt the Celtics. Obviously, when Tatum went down, it was officially over. But again, I mean, Knicks essentially had that series at hand before that happened.
mhm.
You know what? They got younger. Anthony Simons, he averaged 19 a game, almost 5 assists. He's younger, athletic. They get
Not
a
the
productive
defensive
player.
powerhouse that Drew Holiday is, though. We will say
He's
that.
not. He's not. But here's the thing, though. The Celtics, what are you going to get? How many guys in the NBA are defensive guys anyway, right? Jrue Holiday is like a unicorn in and of itself. But they get a very talented player, right? Because they're going to lose what? Another score. They lose a
Mm.
wing who's a scorer in Tatum. They bring a wing in Anthony Simons who can actually score the basketball. And you know what? This is Jaylen Brown's time. If you want to tell everybody that you're Batman and you should be on the Olympic team, here's your chance to prove it. And you got a sidekick in Anthony Simons, and they still got Derek White and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Porzingis. Yeah, we'll talk about what they'll do with Porzingis and Al Horford's getting old. I mean, they just got some question marks, and Ash, that's the reason why the East is wide open. So Boston making a move to lessen their salary. He's on the books for 72 million for the next 2 years. They had to get rid of some salary and create some assets to possibly get some more guys in to help with the eventuality that Tatum will not be back the next season.
Yeah, and speaking of the reason why Tatum won't be back next season, Tyrese Haliburton and the Indiana Pacers are now dealing with that same situation. Look, the visible pain of him physically and emotionally just left the NBA world stunned just minutes into game seven. And it it was just a lot to digest, even if you weren't rooting for the Pacers. Obviously, as a Knicks fan, you knew I was going for OKC, but you never want to see a guy go down like that, especially in the fashion that it happened. And he knew just instantly that it was his Achilles. And a lot of people then started to have the conversation about whether or not he should have even played. Look, he played game six, and we all know he had a calf strain, and we've kind of seen that sequence of events happen with a guy by the name of Kevin Durant. So a lot of people are saying, hey, the league should have known, the medical staff of the Indiana Pacers should have known that this was a possibility, especially just being less than 48 hours removed from a game six. Now, Halliburton has let fans know in a very lengthy, just heartfelt tweet about how he's doing. He just got out of surgery yesterday, or you can assume yesterday, but he basically is apologizing to the Indiana fan base. And he quoted Kobe Bryant, somebody who also knew about this situation, and said, there are far greater issues, challenges in the world than a torn Achilles. Stop feeling sorry for yourself, find the silver lining, and get to work with the same belief, same drive, and same conviction as ever. And that's exactly right. I will do everything in my power to get back. Before we just dissect how this is going to affect the Eastern Conference, Chris, I'm on the side, and I actually had this conversation with Marty, one of our injury specialists, and I said, "There's no way Tyrese Haliburton's not playing in six, and if they get to seven, there's no way he's not playing. This is what guys work their entire careers to get to, the NBA Finals. And if you think he is not going to put his body on the line, and he doesn't know the risk, and he's not going to give it everything he possibly can, because look, played Game 6." Not a single, issue going on. Maybe it felt a little wonky after the game was over. You get to a game seven, there's no way you're not suiting up, especially if you're medically cleared. You knew the risk, and he said, I'm taking that chance anyway. I've worked my entire career to get to this point. Where do you stand on if he should have played or not?
Listen, going back to your intro and people saying there was no excitement in this series is absolutely ludicrous. I mean, I respect the talking heads and guys that have played in the league, but some of their comments are just so off-centered. It's just ridiculous, particularly guys that have played in the league, knowing what it
Mm,
means. And some of those guys that are talking never even came close to the precipice of playing in the NBA Finals with a 3-3 game going into Game 7. In regards to Tyrese Halliburton, you're right. There is no one that would say, I'm going to sit on the sideline and not play. And here's the thing. In game six, he didn't play that much and they blew him out. In game
hmm
seven, he came out and made three threes. What if they would have started blowing him out just because he was out there and had a Willis Reed moment and they got it done and he didn't tear his Achilles? He made a great point. It's the regret that you would live with if you don't go out there. He can heal
Absolutely.
from this. Now, again, Achilles injuries are very tough. Kobe never was the same. We'll see what happens with Tatum. We'll see what happens with all the other guys that have had the same injury this year. All crazy. All of them have the number zero. And he's only 25 years old. That's the other thing. As far as what that does for the Indiana Pacers, they were a team that won by committee. Surely he was the
Mm,
star. And I was very critical of Obi Toppin and Miles Turner in the last game because they did absolutely zilch. But it was because the facilitator, TJ McConnell, got a lot of credit, but he gets his own. He's an attack dog. He's not a facilitator. Tyrese Halliburton makes everyone else play the
yes.
way they can play. He's the glue. So with him not being out there, they're extremely vulnerable, especially against a team like OKC when they lock in the guys who are not used to putting the ball on the floor and having to make individual plays. They're going to be very different. I think this is going to be a tough year. He won't be there next year. And again, TJ McConnell will have to step up. They also have Nimhart, so they're fine at the guard position. Here's the question, Ash. What do you do with Ben Mathurin? That's the question because he was a guy I thought that had some opportunities to do some things. Do you bring in a Jonathan Kaminga? Because again, I don't know if Rick Carlisle was in love with Ben Mathurin the way he subbed him in and out of the finals because I thought he was a guy that had a chance to be a difference maker. And
hmm
sometimes, the numbers won't suggest it. He played tentative at times. They need a floor general. Nimhar's not a floor general. TJ McConnell, they'll do it by committee, but they need another scorer. But I like them intact. But if you compare them with the East, people can say the West is better than the East, but the East is tough. The Cavs, the Knicks, I mean, the
And you
Magic.
talk you
Yeah,
talk
go
about the East, Chris, and it's wide open because let's run through it. It's actually kind of baffling how all of the injuries, the Achilles injuries, happened in the Eastern Conference to a variety of different stars. Obviously, you have Dame in Milwaukee. We still are TBD on Giannis's future. We haven't heard much from him or his camp. Everyone's kind of waiting with bated breath on what he's ultimately going to decide. You have Boston without Tatum, and now you have Indy without Halliburton. The real question is can any of those teams outside of Milwaukee, because we still are uncertain about Giannis. But even if Giannis were to leave, Milwaukee can't be Milwaukee without Giannis, and they certainly can't be Milwaukee without Dame. Boston, you believe, could probably still be a middle of the road team. They're definitely not going to be the top dog in the Eastern Conference without Tatum. I know that everyone likes to think that they don't need Tatum. They absolutely do. And the Pacers, to your point, are interesting. The East is wide open. So if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, if you are the New York Knicks, if you are the Orlando Magic who just got Desmond Bane, you're looking at it and saying, yes, very unfortunate for the injuries that have happened, but this completely and drastically changes our odds to not only come out of the East, but maybe to win the whole thing. I mean, Chris, this is a drastically shifting injury bug with some serious repercussions and benefits for some other teams.
Listen, and here's the thing, actually, don't count out the Pistons. Don't count
Oh,
Cade
right,
Cunningham.
Detroit, right.
Yeah, in the season they had, I'm looking at the Magic with Bane. They're making a move. I think they have a very talented roster. They have an opportunity. I don't know what the Sixers going to do because that's all about health. Because they certainly have the talent. The question is, front office wise, mentality wise, Nick Nurse, a championship coach, but can they put it all together? Because there's always some drama to me outside the court. Nothing about what's going on the court. Plenty of talent, but can they get those guys to the court to be a cohesive group? If they can, again, that's another team. You know, we talking about with a former MVP in Embiid. But you're right. The Knicks certainly are in pole position. They need a coach, right? I think that's a very important component of the situation. The Cleveland Cavaliers have to be saying that they have the best chance. They get Darius Garland back. Maybe they make some minor pieces that they can add, but I think they're certainly solid. And I think they got off to such a great start. The question is, can they duplicate that? And actually, here's the other thing. Is Spider-Man really a legitimate star? We're going to find out next year because they
We're
should
definitely going to find
be
out.
the favorite. Yeah, because they should be the favorite, and we'll see.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see. And speaking of seeing, we're going to see what Houston looks like with Kevin Durant because the shoe finally dropped. He's on the move once again, and everyone has an opinion. We're going to bring in Kyle Boone to join us on this conversation right after this. You're headed to Houston. How does that
We're gonna see, man. We're gonna see what happens, man. We're gonna see.
sound? We'll see what happens, but I am excited. Great young core, great coach. I think he's going to be a great fit there. A lot going on right now. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the face of a man who already knew where he was going. He was just waiting for the rest of us to find out. Ashley Nicole Moss, Chris Walker, and joining the show for the first time, Kyle Boone in the building. And guys, look, it was the off-season news we were all waiting for, and it arrived just hours before Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Kevin Durant is now a Houston Rocket in a massive trade that, of course, has people talking and still has them talking even days later. Here are the full trade details. The Suns received Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, a number 10 overall pick in this year's draft, 5 second-round picks, and the Rockets, well, they just get Kevin Durant. The big question here is knowing what Desmond Bane went for, and it was what, 4 first-round picks when he was traded to the Orlando Magic. A lot of people say, look, the Suns kind of did they get enough? Is the biggest question. I mean, look, Kevin Durant, we know he's of a certain age. We know his injury history. We know, look, he hasn't won anything substantial since being with the Golden State Warriors, but it is still Kevin Durant. And when fully healthy, he is one of the best in the NBA. So you would think that more than one first round draft pick would be accepted or acceptable to ask for. It is Kevin Durant. To only get one, Kyle, I'm going to start with you. That was probably the biggest thing. I said, wow, the Suns traded him for a steal.
Yeah, and the number 10 pick. This is not like a Dylan Harper where you're getting the number 2 pick in return. The number 2 pick in this draft could be anything, but I think projecting ahead, you may not even get a starter back in return for this haul. So, I think it's an interesting deal where Phoenix is also getting multiple second round picks, as you mentioned, just above. The 5 second round picks I think is really interesting too, because this is a team that is trying to avoid paying into the tax. We're talking about the second apron. A lot of teams are valuing flexibility both now and into the future. For Phoenix, obviously they get Jalen Green, they get Devin Booker, who they already have, and they get the number 10 pick. So, I think this is a chance for them to kind of remake themselves around Devin Booker. I'm not entirely thrilled with the haul if I'm Phoenix, but I also think just given that situation, it was untenable and unlikely that Durant was going to be there for the long term regardless.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, look, according to Brian Windhorst, this is interesting. Kevin Durant kept rejecting trades until the price got so low that the Rockets couldn't say no. So he essentially pushed his way to Houston and made sure that they got him for pennies, which is kind of mind-boggling in the sense that the Suns would even allow something like that to happen. I would say that's less on Kevin Durant and me looking at him sideways and more so me looking at the Phoenix Suns sideways because we all know Phoenix, Devin Booker has been there his entire career and they've gone through these multiple iterations to try to make this team work. And you're going to lose Kevin Durant, who made it very clear he did not want to be there, although he kind of flipped it and said the Suns fans didn't want him there. And I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of maybe they didn't want you there because you didn't want to be there, but I digress. And you allow him to kind of dictate a trade that could help you potentially rebuild or semi rebuild. If I mean, what do you make of that report? That's a little, I don't know. The Phoenix Suns might have got fleeced a little bit, as the kids say.
Listen, let's talk about the trade from both angles, and if you're Kevin Durant, you wanted to get out, all right? It didn't work. Bradley Beal, they had what they called a quote unquote big three with him and Booker. But let's not forget, the Phoenix Suns went to the NBA Finals in 2021. No Bradley Beal,
Hmm.
no Kevin Durant. All right. So now you get a new owner in there, Matt Ishbia, and now you get again his idea of how the NBA works. All right, there's probably a learning curve there. You get a guy like Kevin Durant. Again, I don't want to say he's much maligned for not being a great leader. It hasn't worked out the last 6 years since he's left Golden State for his success as an individual to match what he people think he should be as a guy who leads a team to a championship. That hasn't worked out as much, and plus the personal side and the way he reacts on social media. So you think a certain way about Kevin Durant. Now let's look at the other side. Ime Udoka, he coached him in Brooklyn. Who's assistant coaches at Houston? Royal Ivory. Where did he play with Kevin Durant? Where he went to University of Texas. The other guy,
Hmm.
DJ Augustine, they just brought him home, University of Texas. And think about this. Maybe the Houston Rockets said, you know what? Because I had a lot of sources in this situation. I'm from H-Town. A lot of people believe, and I believe Houston got the better of this trade only because they didn't have to
Ooh.
give up Smith and Tari Eason. They gave up Jalen Green, a guy that I don't think that Ime Udoka meshed with, and they give up Dylan Brooks, who, okay, is an enforcer, but this isn't hockey, okay? And you get Kevin Durant in return. The other side is the last thing I'll say is Phoenix getting the 10th pick. Look at the NBA draft, and I'm sure Kyle can attest to this or refute it, is that at the end of the day, you look at the finals, right? Look at the finals. Look at the two guys that were the two primary guys on both teams. Were those the teams that they started with?
No, it was a
The
trade,
NBA
right?
draft,
Yeah.
the NBA draft is very difficult to build it. Now, again, Oklahoma City Thunder had Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, but at the end of the day, it was the SGA was the prize. Bring in Hartenstein, bring in Caruso, and Sam Presti masterfully building that roster. And I think the NBA culture is a lot different now and what it takes to win. So them getting second round picks, guess what? They'll figure their way out through the second round picks because at the end of the day, a lot of those guys end up making rosters. And a lot of these guys they draft in the first round because they're drafting from the EYBL and the Adidas Gauntlet. These guys have 1 year in college, and you have no sample size to say that these guys are going to be super successful or not. People may
I
disagree, and Kyle Ashley disagreed with me last time. I said the reason why a lot of these guys are playing longer in the NBA because they're playing against kids. They're playing
well,
against kids.
I want to go back to Jalen Green specifically, Kyle, because that was something that a lot of people were not necessarily confused about, but posed this question. And this is kind of a question that I have as well. Is it his postseason performance or lack thereof that ultimately was the nail in the coffin for the Houston Rockets? Because let's say the Houston Rockets, maybe they didn't win the whole thing, maybe they didn't go deep in the playoffs, but Jalen Green had an explosive performance in the playoffs, and you saw a team that could possibly run it back. This is a young team, second in the Western Conference. Jalen Green had this explosive performance, and you saw a guy who you could really take that and run with it next season. Would this trade have A, either happen, or B, would Jalen Green have even been included?
Yeah, I think this trade probably had to include Jalen Green if you're the Phoenix Suns. That's who I would be demanding. I'm kind of curious in wondering if there was discussions around maybe even a Cam Whitmore. I would have maybe tried to pry him from Houston as well. But, Jalen Green is a guy who has produced at a high level in terms of his scoring ability. I think there's some questions, guys, maybe about what other things can he do on the NBA floor that is additive. I don't think he's necessarily a defensive playmaker. He's not a guy who I think can be an all defense type prospect. He could end up being kind of an empty calories bucket getter who, maybe doesn't contribute to winning in a way that Houston felt like they could move forward. There's also the aspect of, eventually they were going to have to decide on whether to pay him long term. They don't have to decide anymore. They can kind of reset the market. And, this is obviously a chance when you can go and get Kevin Durant, and especially for a deal that I think is very reasonable for the Rockets. I think you have to do that every single day.
Well, let's talk about what the trade even happened for, right? Can this Houston team win, right? Kevin Durant, we all know, has been searching for that ring post Golden State Warriors to show that he can do it on his own accord. He doesn't need Steph Curry, doesn't need the 72 win Warriors. It's not them, it's him. He can do it on his own, right? And we have a Houston Rockets team that second in the Western Conference, a lot of promise in this young roster. Ime Udoka has worked wonders with this team. But the biggest question is when we look at the Western Conference, we have the Thunder, we have the Timberwolves, we have the Nuggets, who I still think are always in the conversation. We San Antonio, we know they have the second pick in this draft. We don't know what they're going to do with it. I think it's safe to say the Warriors may no longer be in that conversation. The Clippers are an interesting dynamic. And then you have the Lakers with LeBron and Luka and them trying to figure it out. Is Kevin Durant, and Kyle, I'll start with you, Chris, you can pick it up and take it from there. Is this the contender team that we think, or Kevin Durant thinks it's going to be, which is why he so desperately wanted to be there?
I think it is. The top of the West definitely looks loaded. You go through kind of the list of contenders at the top of that conference. OKC, obviously, just winning the NBA championship. The Minnesota Timberwolves are lurking out there. I think a really big threat. But adding a Kevin Durant to the mix, I don't think he's beyond his prime years of contributing at a really high level. The Rockets did feel like they were maybe 1 or 1.5 pieces away from really busting the door down and being at the top of that conference. OKC, they won the NBA championship, but guys, you guys watched it. It did not look like they were completely infallible. Their defense is really good. They have some real questions in terms of, can they consistently win with the way that they play offense? And, that Rockets team, you have Alperen Şengün, you have Kevin Durant now adding to the mix. Tyrese and Cam Whitmore probably going to take a step forward. Like, that is a core that I think could realistically challenge at the top of a really, really deep Western Conference.
You're right, Kyle. And here's the thing. Think about the West. You got a star who's probably the best player in the world in Jokic. You also have, you think about Devin Booker in the East. You have the SGA, who is the MVP. I mean, and you got LeBron. Think about, everyone has a star. The Rockets did not have a star. All right. Even though they didn't finish second, we're talking about a game or two here and there finishing second. That's just a number. And then let me not forget about Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. So at the end of the day, they needed a star. They needed a closer. This is not for the regular season. They don't want a regular season crown. They wanted someone who can help them win in the playoffs. That was what Kevin Durant was all about. Ime Udoka's been to the championship as a coach. And the last thing I'll say about this, he's got that big contract. But how many times have we seen coaches get these big contracts and get let go? So if you're going to have that type of expectation, you want a Kevin Durant to go along with it to give yourself the best chance to win. And you're right, Kyle. No one's afraid of OKC. If I'm the Rockets and I just got Kevin Durant, I'm like, okay, the East is wide open. With OKC, no one's afraid of. We get Kevin Durant, we can win an NBA championship. That's exactly how I see it.
The Thunder still atop the odds, the best odds to run it back and win a title in 2026. Followed by the Cavs, and rounding out the top three, my New York Knicks, the Houston Rockets, sitting at number 4, even with the acquisition of Kevin Durant. Look, when we come back, it is draft week, and we are less than 48 hours from day 1 of the NBA draft, but there are a lot of questions about actually what the hell is going on. We're going to dive into all of it right after this. Welcome back to Triple Threat, everyone. And like I said, we are a little over 24 hours away from day one of the NBA draft. And it seems like the only thing we know for certain or 99.9% sure of is Cooper Flag is going number one and then Dylan Harper is going number two. But after that, it is a free-for-all. Everybody is very confused as to what the hell is going on. Now, this is this year's draft order. We have, as we know, the Mavericks were gifted by the basketball gods or Adam Silver, whichever conspiracy theory you want to rely with, the number one draft pick. And we're going to go through it, but I think the biggest kind of poster child for uncertainty right now, guys, is Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey is the most perplexing draftee in this year's draft, and maybe in recent draft years that I can remember. The former Rutgers star canceled a private workout with the Philadelphia 76ers that was scheduled for last week. And now, per reports, Bailey was seeking a promise from the Sixers, who had the number three pick in this year's draft, before committing to a meeting. Now, it has gotten so bad in Philly that the governor has actually spoken out about this and implied that he reached out to the 76ers themselves to dissuade them from picking him at number three. And it is apparently the 76ers have not ruled out selecting Bailey just yet. But this is the quote. He said, "I'm worried about Ace Bailey. If you're not coming to work out, then you've got something wrong here," and points to the head. "I've already sent a message about that." So you have legislation, legislation, is that right? Getting involved with the draft for the Philadelphia 76ers. Here is Ace Bailey, who I just learned his first name was Arius, and I absolutely love that. That's such a cool name. Here are some of his accolades. But Kyle, I'm gonna start with you. I can't remember in recent history a draftee this perplexing. To cancel every single workout and be a day before the NBA draft and have no sit down with a single team is just unorthodox. And I can't wrap my head around exactly why. What are you hearing? What do you think it is? Obviously, it's not a good decision.
Yeah, this is beyond parody at this point. You have the governor of Pennsylvania weighing in on this situation. Ace Bailey's situation is interesting, right? Like, we have him ranked as the number three player in the draft. For a long time, we have been mocking him as the number three pick in the draft, and yet he has canceled a private meeting and a workout with the Philadelphia 76ers, who obviously hold the number three pick. He is the only non-US player yet to visit a team. And
Wow.
he has so far declined to work out for Charlotte, who holds the number four pick. He's declined to work out for the Utah Jazz, who hold the number five pick. And, I think around NBA circles, people believe that he prefers Washington, who picks at number six, New Orleans, who picks at number seven, or Brooklyn, who picks at number eight. And, I am not a huge fan of lighting my money on fire, but it does seem that he wants to blow some money, because the difference between being the number three pick and, for example, the number eight pick is in the tens of millions of dollars. So it's an interesting situation. We frequently see players and their representation try to steer their clients to preferred destinations, whether it's last year with Alex Sarr, he ended up being the number two pick. His representation seemingly did not want to be the number one pick. Even in Ben Simmons' draft year, he declined up until the last couple of days of the draft to work out for the 76ers, who had the number one pick. The 76ers did make him the number one pick, and he did end up working out. Things can change leading up to the final hour, but this is a weird situation surrounding Ace Bailey, and I don't know where this goes from here.
Chris, I wonder, Kyle lists the teams that apparently Ace is interested in and the teams that he's not interested in. And I think the biggest glaring difference, especially when you talk about, say, a Brooklyn and a Philly, is that Philly, although it is catastrophic over there a lot of the times. They kind of have a set way of doing things. You have Tyrese Maxey, a healthy Joel Embiid, Paul George. Those are the guys that are going to have the ball in their hand a lot of the times. And if you're a rookie coming to that situation, you may not play right away. And if you do, it may not be all 82 games. You may kind of get acclimated into the situation. When you talk about a Washington or a Brooklyn, those are two teams that are very much in a rebuild and just trying to figure it out in real time. So you more than likely will get a lot more playing time. But to Kyle's point, the money is drastically different. And if you are serious about wanting to have longevity in this career, wouldn't you much rather learn behind a Joel Embiid than say a Jordan Poole, for example?
Listen, and I agree with all points that Kyle made. But here's my thing, and particularly, it's not a shot at the NBA. You got to watch this kid for 30 games, okay, at Rutgers. You've talked to probably every single person. This kid is a high-profile kid. He played on the high-profile circuits. They know everything about this kid. To say that they need private workouts to determine whether they want him or not makes zero sense to me. That's an NBA thing. I was a coach for a long time. Again, that's just the way that they do business. Does not mean that Ace Bailey's not going to be successful in the NBA. All right. The other side to that is if you're Ace Bailey, he's like, hey, man, okay, you're talking, and Kyle's point about turning down tens of millions of dollars. It's like, hey, listen, I'm betting on myself. Okay, I'll be the top 10 pick. I'm going to get a second contract. I'm going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. I want to make sure I get the right start. So you're betting on yourself is what you're doing. He doesn't want to go to a team. Imagine, and again, this is, thinking back, this is a crazy way of looking at it. Imagine if Michael Jordan went to the Lakers and Magic was there. I mean, I know it's a crazy way of looking at it, but imagine if Giannis went to a team where they were loaded and he never got a chance to develop. So I'm Ace
But
Bailey
you
saying,
could you
hey, man,
could you could make the argument Tatum went to the Boston Celtics when he
who was
went,
there?
weren't they the
Who
number
was
one
there?
seed in the Eastern Conference when he went there?
Yeah, but my thing is, who was there that would stop him from developing to becoming the Jason Tatum that he became? And the team that he's going to is not the number one seed. And so what he's saying is, I'll go to Washington, build my brand. I'll go to New Orleans, build my brand. I'll go down there and I can get 20 a game. Again, I'm just telling you how it's a cultural thing.
But
I'm telling you how
doesn't
these young
do
kids are
you think,
thinking.
and Kyle, I'm interested in what you think here. Don't you think it's college and the professional league are two different worlds? What you did in college doesn't matter when you step foot into the NBA. Yeah, if you won a championship, obviously that is, considered when you talk about Hall of Fame. But once day one of your NBA season, I don't care what you did at the University of Florida. I don't care what you did at Rutgers. I don't care what you did at UCLA. Welcome to the NBA, young buck. And I feel like it is a bad precedent to set that you are coming into a new environment where you are at the bottom of the hierarchy and you are basically saying to every organization that you are too good to show why you want to be part of their organization, whether or not the league needs to see the tape, whether or not the tape's already out there. It is the way it has always been done. We have Hall of Famers who have done it. We have world champions who have done it. And respectfully, in the NBA, Kyle, Ace Bailey, you're nobody. Like who? Like you're not him coming into, like, you are here. There's a lot of guys above you. Kyle, I wonder where you kind of fall in this conversation.
Yeah, look, I think part of this too is this is a five-star recruit. He was heralded as a top five player in his class. He has long been viewed and praised as like one of the second comings in this class. Like he has been talked about in the same tones as Cooper Flagg, as Dylan Harper, his teammate at Rutgers. And, so now I think he's entering a situation where he feels pretty confident going into the NBA. He's betting on himself. Kind of the backstory here, he's repped by an agency that does not have a ton of high profile clients. This is something where I think he's kind of taken things into his own hands and he sees the situations elsewhere at, picks 6, 7, and 8 and sees, hey, look, I can go in and I can average, as Seawalk said, I can average 20 points a game and give me my max contract. I can make the money back that I lose being for example, the number 6 pick as opposed to the number 3 pick. For me, though, like Ashley, I look at the Philadelphia situation. Yes, it can kind of be laughably bad, but that seems like a fairly stable situation where you have Tyrese Maxey, you have Jared McCain. That is a pretty good spot to walk in as a rookie and be a contributor. So, I think if I'm Ace Bailey right now, I'm looking at this situation, kind of wondering, like, did I completely flub how to handle this? And the PR campaign and the damage that has been done, I think is irreparable at this point.
Look, Chris and Kyle will have a lot more on this situation in the next few days while we enter the NBA draft. They have got you covered. I want to thank Kyle for joining Triple Threat and making his Triple Threat debut. And we hope to have you back very, very soon. When we come back, we're diving into our bag. And I feel like Chris is going to like this topic. I won't tell him why, though. Okay, so look, it's a little segment we like to call In Your Bag. Now, before Tyrese Haliburton's very unfortunate injury, he was on a podcast where he spoke about LeBron and his UNC status. He said, quote, he'll have his iPad on his chest, watching The Sopranos, no headphones, full volume, and I'll tap him and be like, "You're literally the Beats guy. Why don't you have headphones on?" And it made me wonder, when do you actually reach UNC status? So we asked Twitter, or I asked Twitter, and here were some of the responses that we got. Here was the question: when do you officially reach UNC status? And here were a couple of the answers, Chris. I think you first have to give off the aura because I'm 37 and have never been called UNC in my life. Okay, shout out to Julian. What else do we have here? We have over 35. Okay, so all my guys 34, you're almost an unk. What else do we have? When I realize I don't remember the last time I ran at full speed. That's hilarious. What else do we have here? 40. Okay, and I think we have one more. Des Bryant. Shout out to Des Bryant. He says 36. So, Chris, when did you realize you were officially an unk?
Those guys, man. I mean, I'm a little bit older than 36, but those guys, they didn't make it sexy enough. They could have said some other things, like like wearing flip flops with socks, or I'm one of those guys that you could wear your earphones with the wires still on them. Or as my better half, I was going to a concert and it was kind of raining outside. I was bringing an umbrella. She's laughing at me. I'm like, what about you don't have an umbrella? Like there are some things. Or when you go ask someone how to do something on the phone, or you're like, hey, you want to take my number and make sure we communicate? They're like, your number, I'll email you. You know what I mean? So there are some things clearly that you can say that make you reach UNC status very quickly. And the last one is someone says they have cable. It's like, bro, cable for real? Come on, man. No one has cable, man. Get
What
out of
about
here
if
with
you
that.
like randomly strike up conversations with people online, like in the grocery store at Home Depot? Is that unk status?
That's that commercial. Is that the progressive guy that says like,
Yeah.
you're like your parents when you just start randomly talking to people? But certainly age factor, those guys, I think a little bit younger when they're saying that, I think it's more what the personality is. But LeBron with the iPad, I don't own the iPad, but certainly people listening to music, listening to anything where everyone else can hear it, you have certainly reached a point. And the last thing I'll say is readers. Anybody wearing readers, you have reached UNC status for sure.
Are those readers, Chris Walker?
They are not readers, but I'm saying.
And Sharon, our producer, wanted me to just remind everybody we actually are on cable right now. So maybe the unks are watching us right now on Triple Threat and laughing at everything Chris Walker just said. Said, "Yep, I feel that one. Yep, I feel that one." Listen, I love when Twitter dubs people 35 years old as unks, though. I feel like the threshold for age just keeps getting higher or lower as the weeks progress. Look, there's a lot of basketball left to discuss. We have the NBA draft, the NBA offseason, the free agency, summer league. There's so much more to dissect and dive into. We'll have it all on Triple Threat. If you missed a moment of today's show, scan this QR code and watch full-length episodes on the CBS Sports YouTube page. Until then, see you next week. Bye.